Okay, this is a review for Chapter 5 quiz and test. One of your questions, they'll be giving you a number and you'll have to select from one of the options which words are correct. So just like we've learned back in our previous classes, we learned how to write numbers out in written form. So the very first number is 7. And the word and represents the decimal point. And then we write out 51. Now the word hundredths, that's the new part. So if we go look at our diagram, remember, if it's the first position to the right after the decimal point, we're in the tenths. And the new part of a word, so if we're looking over to the left, we know that we have our ones, tens, hundreds. But if you notice over here to the right of the decimal, we have a THS now. So we have tenths, hundreds, thousands. So going back to this example, that's why if you count from the decimal point, the first place is your tenths. The next place is hundredths. Since there's 2 digits, then we know that we're in 51 hundredths is the correct option to select. Now, it's also going to give you where it's written out, and you're going to have to write the numbers. So the first word is 4, so I know I need to write a 4. And the next word is an and, so I need a decimal point. Then I know the next number is a 6, but it's in a tenths place. So I go back to my chart, and I'm like, well, the tenths place, that's 1 digit over. So I'm only going to need 1 digit beyond that decimal point. So I'll go back and I'll just write 6. So that's representation of 4 and 6 tenths. Okay, this next problem, where you will receive an expression such as xz, and remember that's the same thing as x times z minus y. And I saw in the previous test, when you start plugging in your values into this equation, I noticed a lot of people would accidentally write in y here. Please pay attention to the equation that's given to you, and this particular one happens to be x times z minus y. So once I plug in my values, I'm going to first follow the orders of operations, and I have to multiply this 8 times 9.7. And when you plug that into your calculator, you end up with a value of 77.6. And then remember, based on our integer rules, we're going to change that to an addition sign, and this now becomes the opposite. So now it becomes a positive number. So, and then I'll just plug that right into my calculator, and when I do so, I should have the value of 77.8, and that would be your final answer. Also on your exam, you'll be given a number such as 6.8, and it's going to ask you to take it from decimal form to fractional form. So to do that, the first thing you're going to do is just write the 6. So, I apologize, the 6. Now, remember, we just look at the placement beyond the decimal point to the right. And if I look at my chart, I can see that 1 digit means I'm in the 10th place. So if you look at this fraction here, we know at the denominator we need a 10 that is written. So I'm going to write in the bottom, my denominator is 10, and then I just take that 8 and that becomes my numerator. But when I look at it, I can see 8/10 is not in simplest form. So I'm just going to go ahead and work on that. So I'm just going to rewrite my 6, and I know that 2 times 4 is 8, and 2 times 5 is 10, and I have a 2 on the top and the bottom. Those reduce down to 1s. So now my final answer is 6 4/5. So I just took it from decimal form to fractional form and made sure it was in simplest terms. Now the exam's going to give me a number, and it's going to ask me to round it to the nearest hundredth. Now just pay attention to immediately see, do I have the DTH at the end? If I do, then I know, going to my chart, what position I'm in. And you can see this is the second position over from the right, second position going to the right of the decimal. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to look, okay, well, now that I identify which position that's in, it's this digit here. So now I have to look at this next digit over here. If that's greater than 5 or greater, then that 3 would count up to a 4. Otherwise, it does not. So that means everything else will disappear. So when you write this in final form, negative 0.5, Now this 3 did not change, so I'm just going to write the 3, and the rest of the digits go away. There should be no more digits because we're going to make sure that it's in 100th position. And just remember, looking at this chart, when you're in that position, you should have no more than 2 digits. Next, you're going to have a problem where it's going to ask you, is 4 a solution to, and then it will give you an equation, and here's the equation. What you're going to do is plug in 4 in for x, and you rewrite it. And when you rewrite it and you plug in 4 plus 2.5 into your calculator, you should get the value of a 6.5 as an answer, and that does equal to 6.5. So your answer would be yes, it is a solution. You're also going to have a problem where you're going to combine like terms, and I'm going to start evaluating, and I can see this number here and then also this both have an x. It's not an x squared and an x. They're both similar. So I'll just go off to the side and I'll just go ahead and perform that calculation first. And I know that's x, and that's 24.2x. And when I enter that into my calculator, I should end up with a value of 13.2x. And now I'm going to deal with my second set of numbers, and I can see this one and this one, they're alike. So again, I'm going to go off to the side and I'm going to write those out as 37.8 minus 38.2. And remember, we're going to rewrite this as 37.8 plus, and this is a negative 38.2. They're opposite signs, so you subtract and take the sign of the larger number, and once you plug it into the calculator, you'll end up with a negative 0.4. So I'm going to take these two values now that I have and bring them back into my equation. So that answer would be equals 13.2x minus 0.4. You're going to have a word problem on your quiz, which will read the increase in number of texts sent or received per day from 2009-2011. So you're going to go over to your chart and you're going to gather your numbers. So we have 2011 and 2009. But when you write it, it is a subtraction problem, but you must write the 2011 number first and subtract it from the 2009 number. And when you enter that into your calculator, you should have a value of 23.8. And again, this one was 2011, this is 2009. So this would be your answer. This is the number of texts sent or received per day from these 2 years, from those 2-year ranges. You're going to have a word problem that states, for instance, 1 ounce of cream cheese has 8.6 grams of fat per ounce. And it's asking you then, well, if that's how many grams it has per ounce of cream cheese, how many grams of fat does it have if it's 6 ounces of cream cheese? So that would be a multiplication problem. So you would just take your 8.6. You take your 8.6 and multiply that by your 6 ounces. Sorry about that. Your 6 ounces. And then once you multiply that, you should get an answer of 51.6, and then it would be grams. You're also going to have a word problem which indicates a child will wear down 734 crowns within a period of time. And they also specify that there's 64 crowns per box. So they want to know, out of the 734 crowns, how many boxes of crowns did this child wear down? So this is a division problem. You can see it's 64 into 734, so we can get a whole number of how many boxes. But if you enter it into the calculator, you want to enter it like this, where you enter 734 divided by 64. And if you do that, you're going to end up with a result of 11.46875. But if you read your instructions, it's going to ask you to round to the nearest tenth. And if we look back on our diagram, the tenth means we should only have 1 digit after the decimal point. So I'm going to locate my 10th position, which is right here, our 4, and then I'm going to look at this digit here to the right of it, and then it will determine, okay, does that make that 4 count at 1? And it does. So my final answer, rounding to the nearest tenth, will be 11.5. Okay, you're also going to have a circumference problem where you'll have a circle, and if it's at the halfway point, then we know that's a radius. If it was going from one end to the other end of the circle, then that's a diameter. But you will have a radius problem on your quiz. You will not have the diameter. So this is the equation you'll use, 2 times pi times the radius, and our radius is our 8.3. Now, if I go ahead and start plugging in my number, so it'd be 2 times, and my radius is 8.3 pi. So I just go ahead and enter 2 times 8.3 in my calculator, and I should have the value of 16.6, and then I write pi. Now, if I want an approximate answer, then this time I'm going to go down, and on your quiz, it's going to ask for an exact answer and an approximate. The approximate always is displayed by giving these squiggly like equal signs. But what you're going to do is you're going to plug in 3.14 instead of including the pi symbol. And it's approximately because pi is really represented by 3.14, and there's many digits. And these digits are just based on my calculator. That's as many I could show. That's why it's an approximately that answer. So when you enter 2 times 8.3 times 3.14 in your calculator, you should have the answer of 52.124 yards. Also going to have a problem where it will give you a fraction, and it's going to ask you to convert it to a decimal. All you need to do is enter 5 divided by 12 into the calculator, and if you do that, you should have an answer of, it'll be 0.41, and there'll be many sixes along the way, maybe a 7 at the end. It starts rounding up at the very end. But how you're going to display that in mathematical notation, your answer should be 0.416, and then you're going to have a bar over top of that 6 indicating that 6 is repeating. So you will have this on your exam. So remember, if you have all these 6s that are repeating, you just write 16 and you put a bar over top of it to indicate it's a repeating number. Now, if you have a fraction that has a whole number, all you need to do, it's simple. You just write the whole number and then include a decimal point, and then you just go ahead and enter your 3 divided by 20 into the calculator, and when you enter 3 divided by 20, you should have the answer of 15. So that will convert it from fractional form to decimal. We're going to have a problem where it's going to have you determine if 6 over 7 is greater than or less than 0.47. So all you need to do is just take that 6 and throw it into your calculator and divide it by 7, and you'll end up with a result of 0.857. So now, once you have it in decimal form, you can do a comparison to see which one is larger and which one is smaller. And you want to go digit by digit, but we don't have to go beyond this first digit because we can see the 8 is much larger than the 4. So that this answer would be this, that the 6 over 7 is larger than 0.47. Now we're going to simplify an expression, and the expression is 0.7 squared, and it's added to 0.3. But remember, before we can add anything, we got to square that 0.7. So all you do is plug that into the calculator as 0.7 times 0.7, and you'll end up with an answer of 0.49. And once you do get that answer, just add it then to the 0.3, and then your final answer should be 0.79. I have 5 more problems I'm going to show you, but I'm going to make a part 2 because I'm almost out of video time. We're at 14 minutes. So look for the part 2 to finish reviewing the last 5 questions.